Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. Well, it's very close to the most fabulous family time of the whole year, isn't it? When we put on 5 pounds of subcutaneous fatty tissues around our middles and say, wasn't that fun? Actually, that's about the amount that we put on in about the next 80-odd days, you know, between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Tell you what, I'm going to roast and use the basic method to roast this turkey, but you could say, well, this is for lamb or roast pork or roast ham, whatever you like, baked ham. Yeah, the technique would be about the same, but I'm going to show you a sauce which you can roll over with other things. Use your own, you know, stuff. I know that you like to springboard, and that's what I love you doing at the same time. So, tell you what, let's just lay this out as if we were going to do one of those fabulous, you know, front pages of the Saturday Evening Post. And in this particular case, we've got a kind of cranberry charred relish, which is very unusual. This is for Thanksgiving, or you can use it for, the time for Christmas as well. And just sketch this in as well. This is going to be the sauce. It's going to be orangey because it's got both oranges and apples in it, which is rather neat. And then to get the green on there, and you know me by now, I love Swiss chard. I just think it's really tremendous. I'm nearly out of the Swiss chard. I'll get into some other vegetables soon. But it's so good. So that will go in there. And then a little mashed sweet potatoes, or in this case, keeping the sweet potato whole. A wonderful, just solid, textural, magnificent thing that root is. So there it is with the turkey lying under the side of it. So I think from a balance point of view, it'll look pretty good, all right? So if you're ready for one of those special treats in our whole year where the whole family gets together, and we can do this without putting them at so much risk, why not? Okay, come along and show you how. Good, quite a few things to have an attack at here. First of all, the turkey. Now, this turkey is a hen, and that you know just about when it's a hen because it's between, say, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 pounds. After that, starts edging into the toms, and there, well, some people think that they've got a better flavor, but I really don't think so. There's more fat, actually, on a hen than there is on a tom. Now, what I want to do is just cut the wings off, not so it'll stop it from flying away because they can't really fly, you know that. It's one of the things, by interbreeding these things and turning it from a wild turkey into a cultivated one, it actually is so big-breasted, it flaps its wings to try and get off the ground, manages to get, you know, like the spruce goose thing. It just gets a few feet in the air and then flops down again, whereas it saves it from running away. Here is then the bird ready for it. Now, I don't roast these things because they're a little hard to get at and they're very fatty anyway, as this is really solid fat over the top. But I'm going to use these for another part of the dish to make the greatest gravy you ever tasted. We'd hope so. Okay, so this is almost ready. Now, I've got a trivet. Now, here's the old trivet here. This hasn't had a super heavy bird on it. This is actually bent so as to form a base so as to be able to keep large roasts ready. And here is a roasting pan underneath. So we just pop that onto the top and let it settle in. Now, what about a dressing? I'm not into dressings which fit inside the bird. I think they take too long to cook through, and the whole bird takes too long to cook as a result of that. I want to cook this fairly quickly. So here's rather intriguing ideas. I'm going to, oh, by the way, see this? This is a board here, and you've got raw turkey juices on it. Best thing for that, put that away, and remember, wash your hands afterwards. You can start using this until you've finished with the bird itself, but wash your hands. And that's because of salmonella and other things like that. So here, we've got an onion studded with cloves. and it's very spicy and aromatic. We also have here an orange, and to get a kind of citrus smell coming up inside it, we just simply cut around to score in around the outside of the orange there. Just that helps to release it a little bit more, and that will be ready. And then also, sage and thyme are the classic for me. It just smells of Thanksgiving and Christmas. So this is sage and this is thyme. If you can possibly get it at this season of the year, and we should be able to, surely the produce departments have got it in, and then use this. And the quantity that you do, if you take a half-cup measure and you stuff it all in and press it down, it should just about be okay. It sort of looks as if it's got life in itself, and it probably has, as it's sort of coming out again. But it is just, that's the quantity that you need to use. Now, pop that in there, say ah, and put in all the thyme and follow up with the thyme. Now this, when it heats up inside, the smell of the onion and the orange and the thyme and the sage permeates the flesh just right through, and it's really terrific. You don't find yourself missing it a bit. Okay, finished doing that washing stuff now. A little bit of good soap here, and then a hand wash. Now look, at Thanksgiving and times when we're eating a lot of people complain about tummy bugs and things. It may not just be eating too much, it could be just things like not washing hands and transferring uncooked stuff from side to side. Okay. Here is just a little bit of flour on the top surface. I like putting flour on the top. It creates a nice even coloration for presentation in the final analysis. Give it a little pat. Reminds me of your kids when they're growing up. And this is just about 12 pounds now. And just 1 cup of water. Just pour 1 cup of water into the bottom. Reason for that is when it starts to hit the heat and the fats go down into it, then they can spurt and all over the inside of your oven and make a mess of it. But if you put the water in there, that'll start to take up that first slack, and it'll be much easier to be able to get a nice clean oven. All right, 325 degrees Fahrenheit, 165 centigrade. Pop that in. There's plenty of space there. You can get actually a 23-pound bird into an oven, and this is a small oven, so don't buy ovens just for that once a year when you buy a huge oven just for a huge bird, because you can get a huge one in anyway. All right, just put a little bit more water in here because I want to do some steaming in a little while. I don't want it to boil dry. Good. Now, chard stalk. The Swiss chard that I've got in this dish, neat idea. If you just take a cut through like this and remove this, we'll use this leaf a little bit later on. Just toss that to one side. But right now, I'm really into this. This stuff is really marvelous. Normally, you'd sort of chop it out. But if you take a knife to it and you chop that finely until you've got about 8 ounces for about half a dozen people. By the way, an 11-pound bird will give you a jolly good 6-ounce portion. You know, we are celebrating. So 6-ounce portion by 6 people gives you 36 ounces of cooked meat. There should be a whole couple of extra pounds over for the leftover dishes, which you might like. Okay, balsamic vinegar, which is matured in casks and picking up wonderful oak flavors and other different kinds of wood barrels that they do this wonderful vinegar. It's strong and brown and aromatic and terrific. So this will just be simply soaked in there for about 2 hours, and then will look like this one. By the way, when you put the turkey in the oven, all right, it takes 2.5 hours at that temperature. After 1.5 hours, make a note of this, 1.5 hours, you then take half a dozen, if you're going to serve half a dozen people, one sweet potato per person, and about 8-ounce size. As you can see, there's no such thing as a perfect world for us or you, but try and get them as perfect as you can, and trim them up, and just pop them in and bake them just like that, in with the turkey, if you've got space in the oven for them, okay? Now, flash your mind back to this. This has had 2 hours of the soaking in that sort of really a marinade of that mix. of the balsamic vinegar. And now this is a ½ cup of cranberry sauce, of the sweet whole berry cranberry sauce. Mix it all up together and slosh that into a small saucepan there. I had that on the heat so it's sizzling a little. I don't want that to boil, but I do want it to mingle. I want it to get together and have fun. I want you to enjoy each other. I want to lose yourself synergistically, just to mingle a little bit. That's a relish, which is extraordinary, actually, when you come to serve that on the side. Tastes delicious. Okay, great. Let's just get this pan on the go. Here, switch your attention to the idea of 1 teaspoonful of oil. And we're going to have a go at the actual gravy itself, and it couldn't be simpler. It's a really neat idea. Nice large onion, and just cut it through. Quite large chunks because, frankly, this is just so as to give itself up into the sauce. And since you probably would simmer this for about the same amount of time that the bird's in the oven, you've got all the time to be able for it to exhaust itself in the dish. So drop that down and stir it around, you know, to get the natural oils brimming out of that onion. Make the most use of the onion you can. Oh gosh, I love it when that smell comes up. It's just perfect. And now take these pieces that we had, the wings, all right? So drop the wings down in there, and they can scorch a little bit. They can, you know, brown a little bit down onto the surface. I've got the sort of parson's nose, is what we call it in England, and the lights, and then the neck. Those are the pieces which you can take from there. Now, of course, I know what you're going to say. Is he going to wash his hands? Because he's touching, of course, a little soap. I mean, get hoisted by your own petard, that's what it's called. And then these are tossed around, and you drown those when they're nice and brown. Give me a little, you know, poetic license. With 2 cups of apple juice, unsweetened, and 2 cups of unsweetened orange juice. So it doesn't have water in it. It is actually going to make a stock in fruit juice, all right? So we're going to let that simmer away there and let this soak away here. And tell you what, why don't we go and have a look at the supermarket and see what they have in store for us today. Okay, turkey's coming, or should I say the British. This is turkey time. You're going to be able to make your choice, and there's loads of things to make choices about. First of all, if some piece of turkey is actually malleable, you can actually press it in and feel that backbone, see whether it's going to be tender. Then, and especially if it's about this size, about 13 pounds, this is likely to be the hen, which is supposed to be more tender. And this one is subject to federal law at the moment, which means it doesn't have to say eat by a certain date. Strange. But when you take it out of the cryovac package and you put it into a separate package like this one, then you have to have a date on it which says consume by this date. You can obviously see when we did this. So that is a pretty good buy, actually, if you've got a small family and you would like to have very tender meat. It won't look like Norman Rockwell, but it'll look pretty good by the time that you've done it. It's nice, great, tender. I like it. So we'll put that on one side. I'm going to deal with the whole one at the moment. Now, if you're going to, have you ever thought about what's the difference in quality between a raw one and one of these fellas here, which are frozen? You might think to yourself, hey, I can't get the best out of life unless it's fresh. Not necessarily. If you get this one, at least into your refrigerator so that you can defrost it in 3 days, all right? 40 degrees in the fridge, defrost over 3 days. Take the wrapper off, wrap it in foil, put it on a plate so it doesn't drip on anything else. Hey, it can actually defrost well enough so that you can get a very good quality turkey. As to whether you think it's as good as a fresh one, that's going to have to be up to you. Come on, Graham, let's show us what it looks like. Back to you. So much energy. It's wonderful. Look, tell you what, here is the turkey. When the turkey's cooked, then we split the sweet potatoes and dust them with a little parsley, let the turkey set up, and double check the fact that it's at 175 degrees Fahrenheit on the internal thermometer driven into the thigh. And that will be just perfect. But you need to let the bird set up. By that means, you know, if you roasted, and if you imagine that you were roasted and you sort of the juices expand within. No, that's horrid. Think about that. But the juices expand inside the turkey, and if you jab it with something, if you're roasting it, then all those free juices just go squirt out of it, and you get a pool of juice as a result. But by letting it set up, hey, that allows you to be able to roast it, and you don't lose all the juice. It becomes juicy in itself. Now, I just wanted to take the pan. This is the pan that we use to actually roast the turkey in. You've removed it from that, put it onto the serving platter. Now it's got all that gunk and juice and everything else in the bottom. What you do is, as a result of actually straining this mix here, do you remember how we had this? This is the gravy mix. By straining that out and putting that then into the pan, you just wash it up, fat and everything, and just put it onto the stove top and start to sort of scrape it off and let it loosen itself so that you don't waste any particle of the adhered skin or fat or whatever it is. It's all wonderful stuff and needs to come up into that really nice stock which is created with the apple and orange juice. Now here on the pan I've got the steamer, and so there's the steamer base that goes on the bottom, and then the steamer ring with that second steamer base taken out of it now gives you enough space to be able to get 3 pounds of chard leaves. And normally in an average steamer you couldn't even approach that. And always give it a good seasoning of salt and fresh cracked pepper over the top. It's not a bad idea to toss it all in a bowl first of all so that you get the seasoning well mixed up. Then slap the top on and literally count 3 minutes. I mean, 3 to 4 minutes is as much as it needs. It's a wonderful, usually so overcooked. All right, so this is done. Now, here is the almost magical act. This is the strainer, and this you must have if you want to do this dish. There are plenty of these around made by all different kinds of people. And you then take the strainer and you take these pan juices and you simply pour those pan juices into that. Now scrape it all out. Take the time to get every vestige of those juices in there, because when the meat juices actually adhere to the bottom of the pan, they begin to caramelize, and there's this wonderful Maillard reaction that comes for it. It's so good. But in this case, you'll notice that we've got the fat is already starting to rise to the top, and we're going to pour it out of the bottom. And so we'd take a smaller saucepan like this, and then begin that process. Strain it once again, and I'd leave this for 2 or 3 minutes. I don't have 2 or 3 minutes. I'd like to leave it there so that I get all the fat off the top altogether, because it is in the fat that we get most of the problem when it comes to roasts. And roasts are really wonderful things if they have a small enough portion, about 3.5 ounces, 6 ounces for celebration, and that should do the trick wonderfully. Okay, here. Couple of tablespoons full. Always a tablespoonful goes to each 1 cup of liquid that you want to thicken. This is arrowroot again. Not cornstarch with meats in this case, but always arrowroot, because it thickens at a lower temperature and is completely crystal clear and wonderful. Give it a little shake up. Take it from the pan, from the heat always, otherwise you make dumplings, and just pour that in. And since it thickens at about 180 degrees Fahrenheit, it should be just about thickened there. Now I think I'll bring it back onto the heat once again, and you should be ready. Okay, let's see how the chard's doing. Oh, chard is just almost perfect. Ready for the family table and all this stuff. And then you can whip it out and look like a Norman Rockwell, picture, and do the old family drink. Oh, doesn't that look nice? Look, see? Around the outside, all those bits and pieces, I've got the chard, which we've done here. The sauce, the gravy is just coming up and nice and tender. The chard here is beautiful and green and doesn't want to get overcooked. Wonderful. Now I need to carve. We need a bit of magic. Okay, a little bit of magic. Done. How's that for magic? Isn't that wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just do this at Thanksgiving? I always think that it's just a special occasion for a man to shine every year. I know it sounds sexist, but the whole idea of sloshing up a wonderful-looking piece of turkey. Let's have a look just at the moment against this and see whether we've got it right. There we go. You see what we were looking for was the sweet potato, the relish. There's the turkey, there's the sauce over the top, and the chard. Ha, good. All right, we're going to compare that with what is standard about this time of year, which is the candied yams, greens maybe, a big sloshing of flour gravy with lots of fat in it over a big serving of the turkey. Okay, probably the dark meat as well. One of the really neat things about this thing is to just know that if you leave the skin on, you can always count about 5 grams of fat more than it would normally be. It's really not that much when we're going to celebrate. So I think, how about that? Leave the fat on, celebrate. Here is what the classic would be, 2,087 calories. We're going to run that one out at 577, and you really wouldn't notice the difference. Fat is going to go down to 12 from 79, major change there. Up a bit, 68 on carbohydrate because of the sweet potato. Percentage of calories from fat, hey, down to 18% to celebrate. Cholesterol, 141, and look at that cholesterol there. That's twice the normal amount of cholesterol for one day. Sodium, 1139, that's down to 461, so that's good. Good profile from a Minimax point of view. All right. I happen to have had just a little bit of a nosh just before we started, a little bit of the relish. Oh boy, that tastes good. Oh, yep. As always, springboard into the things that you love the most for the people that you love the most. Well, swallowing the turkey. That's very moist, by the way, really delicious. I thought you might just like to have a look at how you could springboard on this idea. I always say springboard, but how do you actually set about springboarding? Well, here's a suggestion. First of all, think of every plate that you're going to try and change, like this one here. Think of it broken down into 5 different compartments. The first compartment being the main item, in this case would be the turkey, obviously. The method that was used, in this case, it was just by taking the bits and pieces and making that gravy and with the apple and orange juice and that sort of thing. So that was the method, say apple and orange and apple juice. The seasoning that went into it. Those herbs, the whole issue of the sage and the thyme, maybe you don't like that. So just think of those seasonings, sage and thyme. The vegetables, you may really don't like Swiss chard. Some people do. I can't imagine why. And even the sweet potato, they're so wonderful. So Swiss chard and sweet potato, that's my selection, but not maybe yours. And then the garnishing, the way that you just put that little, chunky little pieces, the texture that you get out of the Swiss chard stalks with balsamic vinegar. So that's main method, seasoning, vegetables, garnish. And every plate form really has that kind of thing to it. Now, here's the secret. Try and think of the thing as aroma, color, and texture, always. Aroma, the things like the herbs that come off the plate and fill your nose full of the marvels of food. And color, do you remember how wonderful that color is? They're so dull when they're candied. They're candied yams, they're called, they're not yams, but sweet potatoes. They're so dull and brown, but these were so vivid and orange. So just think of that from the sweet potato point of view. Or another vegetable which has loads of color to it. And then texture. The smoothness of that sweet potato, the crispness of those charred things with the balsamic vinegar. So, once again, the chard. Look at food and arrange it in such a way, and I'll tell you what, if you wanted to do this dish instead of turkey, if you wanted to do it with roast pork or with roast lamb, and then a little mint that goes in there, or a little red currant jelly that goes onto the top, boy, I'll tell you what, by the time you've finished, you're having a very exciting time sketching out on a piece of paper your very own dish and springboard it in your own way. That's, by the way, this is not a plug for the book. Well, it is, I suppose. All of the vegetables and seasonings that you could ever want are in that book to be able to help you to do that job. Okay? All right. You know, the absolutely number one thing as far as I'm concerned is Thanksgiving, have fun, enjoy your family, and love on people. Okay, that's the most important thing. See you next time. God bless you. Bye.